So, who are you?
I'm a lot of things. My name is Hayley Madden.
And I'm Kati Barnhart.
And we are the host of Night Classy.
This is a podcast where two teachers unwind, sip wine, and discuss the topics they wish they could teach in school.
So many topics.
So many topics. We're excited to teach each other. So every week we're going to teach each other a lesson on something. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that we can't talk about in school, but I'm a 6th grade math teacher, so my options are pretty limited. I can't talk about as many things as I'd like to talk about. Math is cool, but I was not a math major, and math is not it's something that's great and exciting, but fractions and simple expressions, that's not necessarily what I talk to my friends about. So I want to talk about things that interest me.
You mean you don't have a lust for fractions?
No, I don't have a lust for fractions.
I feel like I don't even know you anymore.
I mean, it depends on how big of a fraction, but...
Okay, I have so many things to say, but I'm going to move on.
Okay, please do.
I am a preschool special education teacher. So basically, I feel like I'm teaching the alphabet, numbers, sight words, colors, shapes all day. And while that is interesting, and while there are a lot of things that go into early childhood that aren't necessarily in the curriculum, there are things that do interest me outside of the alphabet and the sounds the letters make.
Naturally, I would hope. So we're going to talk about lots of stuff. And we drink wine while doing it. So what are we drinking tonight, Hayley?
Tonight we have Nighthawk Black, Lush Pinot Noir, velvety, smooth, luscious. Out of a box.
But we haven't been drinking that up until now. We were drinking the same brand, but I think it was a red blend.
Yeah, and then earlier this week I got a different one to switch it up.
Yeah, but this tonight we drank the red blend and we milked it out of the bag that was in the box. We took the bag out and squeezed out as much as we could of it. It was good. It was the same brand. I really like the Nighthawk black Bought a Box line.
It's good stuff.
It's pretty good. We exclusively drink boxed wine because
we're teachers.
And we go through a lot of wine in a week. So every week we're each going to share some details about a topic we're interested in. And we don't necessarily know who goes first. We're going to flip a coin. So I have a coin right here. I wanted to find a Tennessee quarter, but it's a Georgia quarter. So
she literally said close enough. Heads.
Close enough. So Hayley chooses heads. I guess I have tails. Let's go. All right. It is heads. So Hayley's going to share her story first.
Okay. Perfect.
And I'm so excited. We did not share our stories, our story topics before we are recording. So I'm really interested to hear.
Okay. So I want to introduce this topic with a question for you, Kat.
Okay.
And this is all based, like I said, I studied early childhood education and development because to me, it's very interesting to see how people end up, basically. Nature versus nurture, that whole thing. Yeah. So my question for you is, do you remember at any point in your time, 5 or younger is what I'm going to limit you to, is when you knew you were a boy or a girl?
I don't know if I have a specific memory before 5 where I knew I was a boy or a girl, but I've definitely dealt with that push and pull of femininity versus masculinity and just the boundaries that puts on you growing up and caring about which one you're identified with by other people.
You are giving a perfect introduction to my topic, which is essentially gender and early childhood.
Oh man, that's a big topic, Hayley.
It is huge. And it's something that like I said, I'm super passionate about early childhood education and development. And like I said, as a preschool teacher, I know that I'm teaching them ABCs, numbers, all that stuff. But at the same time, they are learning social cues and biases inside and outside of school.
Absolutely.
And gender comes, it's a large part of how a lot of people, most people, identify themselves. And so children typically identify themselves and their attitudes through 3 like basic factors. 1 is like experience with their bodies. 2 is experiences with their social environment. And then 3 is their cognitive developmental stage, which they can't really help any of these things. So it's just things happening to them. And a lot of the time, kids don't necessarily have the words to describe exactly like how they're feeling, what they're thinking, how they're experiencing the things that's going on around them. And I'm also a big believer that like play is huge. Like that is how children learn.
Yeah. And whether you're associated with like the boys playing soccer or the girls playing house.
Right.
At recess when you're a little tiny kid.
And there are 2 stark differences. And those kids playing, the boys playing ball and the girls playing house have made their decisions. And while you're making your decision, you're like, well, if I play with the boys, then how are other people going to see me? What does this mean to me? What does it mean to them? But also at the same time, like as adults, we think this is how that thought process goes. But is it?
But is it?
Is it really? And how are our thought processes influenced by the things that are around us when we are at such a young age? So I did a lot of research on this in my social issues portion of my early childhood education. And one of the quotes that I have highlighted from one of my papers I wrote is that adults think that gender is a quote unquote grown-up issue or something to talk to children about when they're in their teen years, but it's surely not a topic for early childhood education, right? No, absolutely not. And at least like in my small town, Ohio environment, it was like many families believe that these conversations about gender, and this is a quote from one of the books, they teach sexuality.
Right.
Rather than helping children learn healthy gender identities. There's a phenomenon where like if there's something tragic or traumatic that happens to you at a young age, then like you can kind of get caught in that mindset where you were at that age.
Right.
And so, according to Anti-Bias Education for Young Children and Ourselves, learning about gender identity and fairness, young children start identifying themselves as either boys or girls by the age of 2 years old. And oftentimes this is by behavior and appearance. So they can't say like girls have vaginas and boys have penises. They say boys like blue, girls like pink.
That just triggered a memory.
Let's hear it, please.
I was at Toys R Us back when Toys R Us was a thing. I was probably like between 5 and 8 years old, like peak Toys R Us time. And the Toys R Us clerk always asks you your favorite color. Do you remember that? When you like buy something at Toys R Us, sometimes they ask you your favorite color.
I very rarely got to Toys R Us as a kid.
I also very rarely got there, but like this is something I remember. Like I think it was just like a thing trying to relate to kids. Like, like, what's your favorite color? And I said blue. And I didn't necessarily like blue, the color. My older cousin always said she liked blue. And I loved my older cousin, so I wanted to be like just like her. So I said blue. And they told me that was a boy color. And I was kind of just defeated and like a little upset, but I didn't really know why I was upset. And my mom was pissed off. Mm-hmm. And she like went off, like gave them a piece of her mind and then told me why she gave them a piece of her mind. And I was just kind of shocked. Like that was the first time kind of hearing. Like, I knew pink was associated with girls, blue was associated with boys, but, like, I never heard someone tell me that it was wrong to like the color blue.
The first thing I think of is like, first I get pissed and I'm like, that's not right. That's not how it should be. I have a similar story.
Yeah.
I had someone in my own classroom tell one of my students who was using a pink crayon to color a picture.
Yeah.
And they said that pink was a girl color.
Yeah.
And so I got pissed and was like, you can color
Naturally.
with whatever color you want to. But at the same time, I think about, well, what prejudices and biases and pressures were put on that person to form that thought, because a color is a color. It is just something that goes into your eyeballs and creates light.
It's a color. And my mom was so good at raising us like that. Like, I was always allowed to paint my nails whatever color I wanted with sparkles. And so I had a little brother who was 4 years younger, and he'd see my mom painting my nails with bright colors and sparkles. And as a little kid, you want that too. Like, you want that attention from your mom painting your nails, and you want them to be bright and sparkly. What kid doesn't like bright and sparkly things? And so she would paint his nails, and until he got to kindergarten, then people in kindergarten started making fun of him for having pink sparkly nails. And then he stopped.
And it's not like these kids in kindergarten actually know, like one thing I hear a lot is like people calling other people gay as an insult.
Right.
They have no concept of what that means and why, like, it's not an insult.
No.
But they learn that from these other
sources
in their life.
Possibly their parents, especially other kids.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And especially for boys, these sex roles are enforced very early on. Like, how often do you see, let's say a boy and a girl are riding their bike, they both fall down. What is the parent going to say to the boy versus the girl? To the boy?
Be tough.
To the girl?
Be a man. It's okay, sweetie. Like, come over here.
Right. They're both 3, 4 years old, whatever age you start riding fucking bikes at. I don't know.
Who cares?
I'm not a parent.
I'm not a bike enthusiast. I don't know.
I have no idea. But why should their gender matter? Because it hurts the same. That doesn't make any sense.
It does not make any sense.
And so that gets set in their minds from a very early age. And I'm so glad that you brought up the idea of Toys R Us, because one of the most influential articles I read is called Miles of Aisles and Sexism, Helping Students Investigate Toy Stores by Sudie Hoffman.
Well, maybe I'm stepping on your toes.
No, go for it.
Like, boys and girls sections in toy stores didn't come up until like the mid 60s or 70s. It was all just one toy store until they started realizing they could capitalize on making separate toys blue and pink for boys and girls and making more money that way.
Right.
By selling basically twice as much product, just making it a different color.
Exactly. And not only is it the same product, but it's the same experience in some regards, but at the same time, it's totally not. And children's experiences and understandings of like their gender identity, they're not super clear on what makes them a boy or a girl. They have these outside sources that influence them, and they don't necessarily have that word for gender anatomy.
No.
They don't know what it means.
They don't.
And I also like have this whole topic in the lens of an educator, not as a parent, but as an educator. And it's much easier, I think, to influence students because you have them 7 hours a day and that's just it. But their parents have them for the rest of the time. So you have them in a short amount of time. But the differences are extremely stark between the boys and girls section in a toy store. Like, what do you think of when you see, like, if you were go to Target and go down, like, quote unquote, the girls toy section?
The girls toy section is dolls. It's pink. It's stuffed animals. It's a lot of heart. It's like, yeah, it's dolls and stuffed animals, basically. Like, you might have some Lego sets, but they're princess themed.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And what about the boys section?
The boys section has action figures. Keyword is action. You're doing things. Mm-hmm. You have things that shoot, things that move around. You have more computerized toys. You have, more things that move around. And action, I think, is the key word. Violence, blue, darker colors. And girls' toys are more about nurturing the toy, and boys' toys are more about making it move and using experimentation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there was a study done that they touched on this article in Miles of Aisles of Sexism. And the basic theme they found is that boys' sections are overrun with weaponry.
Right.
And I see that reflected as a preschool teacher teaching all boys. They all know one of the rules in our classroom, along with sitting crisscross on the carpet and no talking while the teacher is talking, is no guns.
Right.
That, and like one of my students repeats it to the other students. Like one of them today was like, he put pegs together and he was using it as a wand that like shot fire.
Yeah.
And the one student was like, he's using guns. And I talked to both of them and I was like, well, it's technically not guns, but I'm also not super okay with this idea of like wand shooting fire. But it reinforces this whole idea of violence. And really, what does a 3 or 4-year-old have to gain from seeing and experiencing violence?
No 3 or 4-year-old has anything to gain from experiencing or seeing violence.
Right. And I think that, to me, a major message that it sends with violence is it obviously creates a divide, and there's them versus us.
And it normalizes it. And so boys react more violently to high pressure situations than girls do.
Yeah. They can be like a grenade ready to go off because they learn it so early and
Right.
you're so impressionable.
And it's like it's in your toys. What's wrong with it? Like you're playing with your action figures that have knives and guns when you're a little kid. Like what's wrong with you doing it later on?
Right. So that is not only stunting their developmental growth, but I think it's hurting them emotionally and socially because they don't know how to actually cope with consequences and actions and problems because it's just shooting fire. Let me just shoot fire at you.
Fire at the problem and it goes away.
I do work with boys who are interested in violence and fighting and all of those things. And I have a few notes that I took for strategies, and then I'll read like 1 or 2 of them and we can kind of delve into more on what they're talking about because we have a couple more minutes. Number 1 is just conversation.
Yeah.
Talking about it, not making it because, especially for young children, when you make it a taboo thing, then they
like want it so much more.
It's
oh my
so
God.
interesting.
I have an 8-year-old brother right now, and like my mom is so against guns, against violence.
Right now, like one day
raised
he'll
him.
be 9.
One day he'll be 9. Right now he's 8. My mom is just like, she's so anti all that stuff, and like it just makes him want it so bad.
I'll share 2 more strategies I have as an educator / future parent, hopefully. I want to touch.
Hopefully.
I mean, I don't know, not hopefully. Actually, that is something I wanted to touch on for a long time. You know, like I've told you about this. I have wanted to be a mom like for my whole life. And that came from like playing with baby dolls and like being the mom figure. And then I was like, well, do I? Do I want this?
And I feel like I met
projected?
you when you told me you wanted like 8 kids.
Yeah.
And then we started talking, and I feel like we evened each other's out. I'm like, I want no kids. And you're like, I want 8 kids. And then we both started talking and we're like, okay, like let's settle on like a few. We both kind of came to an agreement.
If one of us reproduces, the other one has to, so that our kids have friends.
Right. Our kids have to be friends with each other.
Yeah, they will be. Okay. If that ever happens. But this whole thing that gets me hyped up about it is that it seems like it's black and white, and there's a lot of bias that goes into this. And to me, bias does not belong in education. It's not equitable. It's damaging. And the second strategy I have is just that the manner in which you educate children on this topic is extremely important. So giving children important information in a matter-of-fact way helps them relax and process this information without feeling the pressure that they constantly feel, whether they know it or not, because they don't have the words, or the discomfort that they've probably learned when talking about these things. Do you have anything to say about that? Or
no, I feel like I've said everything I wanted to say.
Okay.
Like, just do your best to raise your boys and girls in the same way so that they can make their own decisions.
I totally agree. And that's why I chose this topic. The third strategy I have is just giving children examples that are relatable. So we talked about this podcast as 22 and 23-year-old females. But really facts tell, stories they sell. So like if a child can see themselves in a lesson, it's going to stick with them.
Yeah.
If not, then it's just going to go in one ear and out the other.
And the vast majority of protagonists in children's books are male.
Yes. And
To
that
touch on another topic.
I have a whole other topic about superhero play, which is extremely interesting how children act out their power and emotions that they want to explore but don't really have the chance to in normal life. Maybe more on that later. But relatable examples can be books, they can be dolls, they can be modeling. And I think modeling is one of the most important things when teaching children anything, especially things about gender. And that's about all I have got. This is important to me because young children are so impressionable. And, you know, it was so cool seeing you being like, wow, I just remembered this thing about being in Toys R Us. And somebody asked me about my favorite color. And whether you don't think about that every day, but obviously it took some effect on you.
It absolutely did. I still remember it because I was so off put by the response.
Right. And your mom, she did a great job, but not everyone's moms do.
Absolutely.
So I want to end my lesson on one of my students. I'm not going to say their name. Because legality. But I think his mom is doing a great job. And I have two quotes from him who, like, I just think that from what I can tell, his mom is doing a great job on this topic. One of them, I've told you this before, but we were singing the ABCs at carpet time, and this kid just talks a lot. And while we're all singing the ABCs, he just blurts out, I have a penis. And so like she's teaching him the anatomy, obviously. But he also is like the kid who will play with the baby dolls I have in the classroom. And that does not limit him knowing that he has a penis.
Right.
And
he has a penis. He can still play with baby dolls.
Exactly. And then the second one actually happened this week. He went to the restroom and he was like, I don't have to use the restroom. And my teaching assistant was like, well, try anyway. He ended up going number one. And she's like, see, that's like why we always try. And he just shrugs his shoulders and he's like, yeah, I guess my penis was just still tired. So the first quote to me is something that's like, yeah, he's learning the anatomy and what it means to be like a male biologically. But at the same time, the second one just brings the childhood innocence of that, like, they don't actually know what they're talking about.
This means.
So just let them do what they're gonna do, and they embrace them as they are, love them as they are, give them all the opportunities to explore their interest, and that's how they end up the best they can be.
Absolutely.
And that is my lesson. Class dismissed.
Is your lesson. Class dismissed. I think we should take a short break from our sponsors because I have to pee.
Me too.
Okay.
We want to talk about a product that has greatly improved both of our lives, Eczema Honey.
Eczema Honey offers all-natural, high-quality skincare designed to soothe the effects of eczema and psoriasis. Their ingredients include things like organic pure honey, almond oil, organic olive oil, organic grated beeswax, sunflower oil, and pure spring water. Even if you don't have a skin condition, these are still great products for dry skin.
I never experienced eczema until I was older. It seems like the older I get, the more ailments I get. But one day I just woke up and had eczema on my eyes. My eyes were dry, the skin was leathery and puffy, itchy, red, not an appealing look, not an appealing feel. So I tried out the Eczema Honey Gentle Face and Body Lotion Stick. I was amazed. The difference after just applying it one time, it goes smoothly onto the skin and your skin immediately starts feeling better. So thank you for that recommendation for Eczema Honey, and I'm going to recommend it to all of our listeners right now.
If you have eczema like us, psoriasis, dry skin, or just want to up your skincare game with their organic products, check out Eczema Honey at eczemahoneyco.com and use the code NIGHTCLASSY10 for 10% off your first order. It's worth it. All right, so we peed, we ate some mac and cheese, we had another dance moment to Smack Dat and Hips Don't Lie.
It was necessary.
It was so necessary. We're revitalized, re-energized. I'm ready to share my story. So, Hayley, are you ready?
I am so excited. I have so many ideas about what it could possibly be, but I don't think any of them are right. So I'm ready. I'm listening.
All right. So I'm going to start with a personal anecdote. And then I'm going to see if you can guess the topic of my story.
Ooh, okay.
And then I'm going to reveal it.
Okay.
I just want to frame this a little bit. So recently, I have a cat. His name is Ghost. I adopted him from the streets. He came into my life unexpectedly. And I just felt this energy toward him and I had to take him home. But our other roommate, so Hayley and I are roommates, and we have another roommate, Kelly, who's allergic to cats. So I keep Ghost mostly in my room and Hayley and I's connected bathroom. So Hayley and I's rooms connect. We have a Jack and Jill bathroom, so our bedrooms connect to their bathroom. So Ghost mostly, every time I'm not home, Ghost stays in my room connected to my bathroom where his litter box and his cat dishes are. When I'm home and I'm downstairs, he comes downstairs with me, but I try not to keep him downstairs too much because it'll aggravate Kelly's allergies. So I was leaving one day. Alec was downstairs. We were about to leave together. So Alec is my boyfriend and our producer. He was downstairs and just waiting for me. And he saw Ghost walking around downstairs. And in my mind, I carried Ghost upstairs and put him in my room. I do this every time I leave the house. I put him in my room, shut him in my room so he just has my room and my bathroom to walk around in. And when I put him in my room, he normally either sits on my carpet or he runs straight to my windowsill and looks out the window, which is across the entire bedroom from my bedroom door. So I put him in my room. We're about to leave. I carry him all the way up the stairs in my arms, put him in my room. He runs out of my arms. I drop him down. He runs to the window, sits on the windowsill, and I make eye contact with him. And I'm like, okay, he's in my room, and I shut my door. Sometimes he has a tendency to run out my bedroom door when I have it cracked. But I always see him run out my bedroom door, and he tears down. I feel him run past my legs down the stairs, and then he usually waits in the middle stair until I reach him because he doesn't like to go anywhere in my house when I'm not there.
And you can hear him.
You can hear him tear down the stairs, and he waits in the middle stair, wags his tail, and then once I reach the middle stair, then he runs down the rest of the stairs. I put him in my room. He runs to my windowsill. I see him sitting on my windowsill. I'm like, okay, I can shut the door, walk out my room, and leave the house. He's in my room, locked up. So I lock him up in my room, walk down the stairs, and then our stairs opens up into the living room. And then I see him sitting next to Alec's feet. And I'm like, why is he downstairs by Alec's feet? And I asked him, and he's like, oh no, he's been sitting here the whole time. And I'm like, the whole purpose of me walking up the stairs and putting him in my room was that he was locked up in my room for me to leave. And I specifically remember like like I'm kind of like OCD is not something to be lighthearted about, but like I'm obsessive about making sure I lock eyes with him, make sure he's locked in my room before I turn around and walk out the door, because that's serious. Like if I leave him locked out of my room, he's going to pee and poop everywhere and hurt Kelly's allergies, and it's a big deal. So I always make sure like I do a double check, make sure he's in my room before I shut the door. And I did that day.
I feel like I remember you announcing that you're like, all right, I'm going to take Ghost up and then we can go.
Exactly. Like I took him up, made a whole big deal about it, put him in my room, and Alex like, no, he's been done here the whole time. So it was like 2 alternate timelines where Ghost was down there the whole time with Alec and with Hayley. And I thought I had brought him up to my room, put him in my room, and even like made note that I made eye contact with him while he was by my window, shut my door, then walked down the stairs, and he was also in the living room. There's no way he could have run past me without me noticing. Like he runs past me all the time, and I always notice because he's so loud and obnoxious and like clearly trying to make a break for it because he doesn't like being locked up in my room.
He hates it.
He hates it so much. He loves like tearing around the living room being a fool.
He will meow to me through the bathroom door. Like once I get home, if you're not there, I just hear meow.
Yeah.
Meow.
He hates being left alone. And so like I always like feel like he's going to run when I shut my bedroom door. And this time he didn't. He sat on my windowsill, which sometimes he does because he likes to look out the window. And I made a note of it. And it was like a weird glitch where somehow there were 2 alternate timelines where I brought him into my room. And then somehow at the same time, he was also downstairs the whole time with Alec and Hayley. And they both thought he was down there the whole time. It didn't even register to at least Alec, well, like why I'd like walked upstairs. Like they just thought I was grabbing my keys or something. Mm-hmm. And so that happened. And then it got me on this topic. Hayley, do you know what I'm about to talk about?
Alternate universes? Or
kind of.
So I know before this, we didn't reveal our subjects to each other. And I know one thing I talk a lot about is my philosophy that we're all in kind of like a Horton Hears a Who type situation.
Right. A situation, which is another word for what? I do this to my students. I'm like, what's the vocab word that we were talking about all week that you should know?
Simulation.
We are in a simulation.
Motherload.
So I'm talking about the simulation hypothesis, where we are all living in a computer simulation and there are glitches in the matrix. Like I just brought Ghost up in my own reality, but he was also there in someone else's reality. That's what I'm talking about today.
This is like an early birthday present for me. I love this so much.
I knew you would.
Okay, all right, I'm listening.
So I'm kind of like woo-woo and spiritual, and I'm like, maybe this is this and this is that. And Hayley always goes, or we're all in a computer simulation. And so when I chose my topic, I wanted to pick something I'm interested in that's like kind of a conspiracy theory, kind of spiritual, like interesting in that way, and that also Hayley could relate to, which is that she always talks about how we're in a simulation. So I'm going to go a little bit into the simulation hypothesis, talk about the researchers, the origin of it, talk about some Reddit stories of glitches in the Matrix, like mine with my cat, and then I'll wrap it all up talking about a surprise. So, first of all, what is a glitch in the Matrix? It is an inexplainable phenomenon, like my cat being in 2 places at once, and it started with the movie The Matrix, which was filmed in 1999, or it came out in 1999.
Do you think it started with that movie, or do you think it was I don't think
it started with the movie, but the whole glitch in the Matrix idea, which came from Reddit, Reddit thread, came from the movie, because you have this idea that we're all living in a computer simulation, and that the way we figure out we're living in a computer simulation is because there are glitches and bugs. like you would have in a computer simulation or like in a video game, like my cat being in two places at once.
Nothing is perfect.
So nothing is
including
perfect.
the universe.
And the way we kind of launch in to that computer simulation theory is that there are bugs in our universe, and we've always kind of noticed them. So the first time the simulation hypothesis came along was in 2003 by I think he was a physicist, or no, he was a philosopher named Nick Bostrom. And before I get into his theories, first of all, I just want to define the simulation hypothesis, which according to Wikipedia it proposes that all reality, including the Earth and the universe, is in fact a simulation and most likely a computer simulation. So basically, like, think back to when you were in like the early 2000s playing your Sims. We're Sims for a higher intelligence being. Whether or not that's a machine, like in the Matrix movie, or an alien, or humans in the future, we are a computer simulation. And I'm here to prove to you that most likely our reality is not real, but like the most likely thing we are is in fact a computer simulation, according to Nick Bostrom. So he theorized...
Have I proposed to you yet? Because I'm about to get down on one knee.
So you always told me everything is a simulation, but here I did the research, and I have philosophers and physicists and computer scientists backing me up who say it is.
You have facts, I have intuition.
Yeah. So you always knew this, and I always kind of like rolled my eyes at you and been like, okay, Hayley. But then I started doing this research because I originally thought this would just be a whole like Reddit thread on like glitches in the Matrix kind of things.
Yeah.
And then I started reading the glitch in the Matrix Reddit, and to me, like, I believe in ghosts, and like to me it all just seemed like supernatural stuff, and like this doesn't really seem like glitches in the Matrix. So I started looking into the theories, and there are real scientists that truly like Neil deGrasse Tyson believes this is a real thing. So we're going to get into Netflix. It. I'm gonna. So Nick Bostrom says that if you believe that humans are going to advance so far that they can simulate reality, so he believes that you're like in the future, people are going to simulate realities of the past so that they can see how the past played out, and they can see how their ancestors played out. So they're going to be able to simulate reality so they can see how history essentially created itself. So if there's a way to take DNA or to recreate like an artificial intelligence that can recreate the past and you can see exactly how it plays out, you would want to study it. So there's one computer simulation. So it says, according to Wikipedia, he theorizes that in the future, people will run simulations of the past, and the computers will be so powerful, simulated people will be conscious. Also, because someone from the future will be controlling some of these avatars, it's possible that right now, some of the minds in our present are actually future beings that are controlling avatars in our own reality. So not all of us are simulations, but some of us are being controlled by people looking at the computer simulations that are different kinds of beings than we are.
I'm not saying I'm a genius, but I'm saying I get what he's saying, because to me, I am extremely open-minded. Mm-hmm. And to me, what that says is that there are several layers. There's not a black and white truth and false, true and false to our being, but that there's this in between and there are layers. And so that cannot make one thing right or wrong. And there's just possibility.
Absolutely.
Please keep going.
There is a lot of possibility. So what this philosopher laid out is he laid out 5 guidelines, which I got from a YouTube channel. I don't know if I got it from Kurzgesagt in a nutshell. That's their YouTube channel. And so they laid out his 5 assumptions. And if you can assume all 5 assumptions, then you have to assume that there's a strong possibility we're in an alternate reality. And I'm about to read you those 5. And honestly, they're all pretty acceptable.
I'm taking notes.
So 1, it is possible to recreate consciousness using technology.
Absolutely. It's already
happening. So it is possible.
Yeah.
2, technology will not stop advancing anytime soon.
Why would it? It's been advancing since the time they created hammer and nails.
3, advanced civilizations don't destroy themselves. So obviously there are things like environmental restrictions that will destroy civilizations. Civilizations will be destroyed by a meteor. Civilizations will be destroyed by a number of things, but they don't necessarily destroy themselves. Like there's some outside force that destroys them or builds upon them, but if left to their own devices, they will keep advancing. All right, 4, super advanced civilizations want to run civilizations.
Did they touch any more on about the motivations to want?
I think you just have to look at imperialism. Like you have civilizations throughout history, like in our own world, who they get to a certain point and they want to take over and run other civilizations and make them like themselves and see how it plays out. Like we've seen evidence of this countless times, for the worst, 99.9% or 100% of the time, where once a civilization becomes so powerful, they want to dominate and run other civilizations. That's just a fact.
Yeah. And I think that one way that they can gain followers and believers who, like, if they, first of all, were believers in a civilization, but also were believers in their battle to control other civilizations, is that they believe that that's what's right. And they just, it comes from, quote unquote, like an altruistic point of view.
Absolutely. And you want to learn more about your own civilization by observing other civilizations. And like I was an anthropology minor, and like where anthropology came along was comparing your own like quote unquote superior civilization to other civilizations that you were studying. And in studying them, you were controlling them because you were exerting your power over them to get their resources, to get their knowledge, to push them to give you whatever they had so that you could study them and compare them to yourself. And why wouldn't we do that with computer simulations?
Yeah, because computers mean, you know, to you, it's not real. But what if on the other end, you had no idea
absolutely
what you're creating?
No idea. And we're going to go there.
Keep going.
All right.
Don't stop.
So the 5th one is, if you assume all those 4 things, if there are a lot of simulations, because the universe is infinite, and if one simulation can create another simulation, like say we were a simulation and we're creating AI and we're making other simulations, there are infinite simulations out there.
Yeah. Just
the odds are, if every intelligent universe is creating AI and making simulations, most likely we are in a simulation. And why do we think we are in an authentic universe? When if we assume all these other things, if we assume we can create consciousness using technology, if we think technology will not stop advancing, if we think there are countless universes that don't destroy themselves and that want to run simulations, why do we think we're an authentic universe? We are probably a simulation.
Right. Because why wouldn't that be true?
Exactly.
Why wouldn't you keep going?
That is what Nick Bostrom in 2003 theorized.
Is he married?
So those are the things he laid out in his paper. And since then, people have tried to prove or disprove this theory. He was just a philosopher. He was not a quantum physicist. He was not someone who worked for NASA. He was just a philosopher. I think he worked for Oxford. Yeah, he worked for Oxford.
Does the philosophy degree just teach you how to think critically?
How to think, yeah. So he thought critically, and he came up with this theory, which got me thinking, how did he come up with this theory?
Yes!
So,
love that. I had the same question.
I started thinking about the internet in 2003. And so I just want to take a brief sidebar. So he had this amazing idea about artificial intelligence and the boundaries of the internet and of technology in 2003. And so I was thinking about the internet in 2003, and it was not much. So I pulled up the top 10 websites in 2003 versus the top 10 websites now. And I was expecting something way more exciting.
Oh, no.
2003 websites were not fun.
Can I guess?
Yeah, please guess.
Okay. 2003. Yahoo?
Yep.
Oh, hell yeah. Okay. MySpace?
Nope.
Okay. All right. I got Yahoo. What else? 2003. I was 5 years old. I don't know. All I got is Yahoo.
All right. So Yahoo is number 1. So you're doing pretty well. So I'm going to start by saying the top 10 websites now. According to similarweb.com, I forgot to look at when this website came out. I just Googled the top 10 websites right now.
Okay.
So I assume this is fairly recent. So right now it probably will make sense to you. It goes Google, YouTube, Facebook, Amazon, Yahoo, Twitter, Pornhub, Wikipedia, Instagram, and X videos, which I assume is another porn site.
Okay, I've never even heard of that.
Me either, but I assume X videos is porn. Anyway, so it's a mixture of search engines, social media, and porn, right?
Right.
And then Wikipedia is in there too. The 3 basic needs
of human life, any life, living forms. You need
absolutely
search engines, social media, and porn.
Right. That's how we think of the internet now.
Not even sex.
In that
you don't
order.
need to reproduce because we're all some fucking simulation.
Exactly. We don't, yeah. In that order. Search engines, social media, porn. Back in 2003, it went search engines to weather.com. So we have in 2003 Yahoo, AOL, MSN, Microsoft, eBay. I guess that's their Amazon of the time.
Yeah.
Google, Go.com, which I assume is a search engine. I didn't really look it up. Netscape, I can also kind of assume that's a search engine. Windows Media, and weather.com is number 10.
I wish our one listener could see my face right now because I'm shook.
So, first of all, I have 2 major people that believe in this theory. I already went into Neil deGrasse Tyson, who I have a quote from him here from, I think, NBC.com. It says he is quoted saying there are better than 50-50 odds that the simulation hypothesis is correct. He says, I wish I could summon a strong argument against it, but I can find none. And that's a major physicist saying that there are better than 50-50 odds. We are all a simulation. It is. So the second person I wanted to talk about is Elon Musk.
Yes!
Both Neil deGrasse Tyson and Elon Musk are huge creeps, but they're both highly intelligent people. So Elon Musk says...
It's 2 in the same.
Elon Musk says, if you assume at any rate of improvement at all, games will eventually be indistinguishable from reality, we're most likely in a simulation. So if we keep creating video games that become indistinguishable from reality, we might just be in a giant video game. Who's to say?
Keep going.
So we're going to keep going and talk about people that have tried to prove or disprove his hypothesis.
All right,
So-
Judge Judy, let's go.
I pulled this experiment just because, all the scientists came from the University of Washington, my alma mater. So I have Silas R. Bean,
Never heard of him.
Zora Devoti,
Never heard of her.
Martin J. Savage. They are all, I think, physicists that tried to prove or disprove this hypothesis.
Cool.
So your goal as a scientist is usually to disprove, right? Like you're trying to disprove something.
It's easier. I think it's easier to take the quote unquote like pessimistic view.
So their hypothesis was, it was really confusing to me. So they're trying to find flaws in the simulation to prove that this is a simulation. So if they can find bugs and flaws, like I described with my cat, then they can prove or disprove that this is a simulation. And the way they do this is really confusing. So they're trying to find flaws by discovering the mathematical structure used to build our simulated reality, which I did not understand what that meant. So I pulled a quote from Wikipedia that went over it. And this whole quote is like an entire paragraph that just went way over my head. So I thought it'd be like funny to drunkenly read it on the air because I don't know what any of this means. They're way smarter than I.
Don't worry. I'll know what it means.
I went to the University of Washington, but I was a history major. I was not any of this. So it says, under the assumption of finite computational resources, the simulation of the universe would be performed by dividing the continuum space-time into a discrete set of points. In analogy with the many simulations that lattice gauge theorists run today, build up nuclei from the underlying theory of strong interactions known as quantum chromodynamics. Several observational consequences of a grid-like space-time have been studied in their work. None of that makes sense to me.
To me, can I give my interpretation?
Go ahead.
To me, what that means is that like it's all broken down to basic math. So like it would all be evenly distributed. That's the word I'm looking for. It would all be evenly distributed, and that it would completely make sense. Like if it's made by a computer, then that's what it would be. But I think that when you combine this simulation that we're apparently living in plus life, which I guess what some people are living in, but some people aren't, then that's where you can get glitches in the fucking Matrix.
Absolutely. And that's what I want to talk about next. So, there's a way to mathematically grid out our universe. And if there are discrepancies, there's a glitch, and then it could possibly be an alternate universe. It's basically what you just said and what they're saying in my mind. There's still a lot that went over my head, so I'm kind of confused. But there's someone from the University of Texas named Scott Anderson, and his exact speculation is that if this is a simulation, there will be observable bugs, just like in the Matrix movies. And so there's a NASA engineer named Thomas Campbell who thinks that reality is only simulated in detail when we are watching. So if whoever's simulating our universe thinks we're not watching, there can be discrepancies. So he also had a really complicated test that I'm not fully clear on, but basically he bounced lasers around mirrors, and they either had like straight wavelengths or wavy wavelengths, and the protons did something, and like based on something. I tried so hard to understand this, but I really didn't. Either the protons behave normal or the photons behave normally, or they don't. And however we expect them to behave is like our reality. And if they don't behave like that, then they think like no one's watching, because it's such a complex like matrix of mirrors and passages and photons and lasers that no one's expecting them to behave a certain way. So if they like act wavy or act straight in an unpredictable way, then possibly this is a simulation. So I think that's what I made of his hypothesis. I'm not completely sure. So if we have any listeners and they are versed in this and they want to correct me, please do, because I tried so hard to understand and I really couldn't. I watched YouTube videos, I read articles, I did not get it, but
I'm not well versed. But what I like about that is that it's lasers and mirrors. It is completely inhuman. And I think that what we're talking about, humanity and our consciousness as we know it, is easily like morphed and formed into what we think it could be. Like it's manipulated.
Yeah, it's definitely manipulated.
But lasers and mirrors, at least as it seems.
Hold on, you're just so kind, because I put all that in my notes thinking you'd laugh at me and make it funny, and you're just being so sincere and saying you also don't understand. And nothing's been funny so far. You're just so into it, which is great.
I am. I'm so okay. All right. I'm so into it. If I had to channel my funny bone phone right now, what I would say is that we're smart. Lasers aren't. They're so predictable. They just want to act up like our fucking kids in the classroom.
Lasers and photons are predictable. They don't want to act up. They want to do their thing. And if they act up, that's something unpredictable that we can't explain.
But
and
the
that
fact
could potentially
that you're talking about this is that there has to be something that's unexplained.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't put it in my notes, but there's another scientist who I don't remember his name because, again, it's not in my notes. But he was saying that we cannot distinguish whether this is a reality or in reality because like whoever's simulating this will like ultimately exert their own desire of like whether or not, and the only thing we can hope for is that there's some unintentional like major glitch in this matrix that proves to us. But even then, we like reading so many of these Reddit posts, which I'm about to go into, they just seem like ghost experiences. And like I haven't talked about this on this podcast, but I am super into ghosts and the paranormal. And reading glitches in the matrix, like r/glitches in the matrix on Reddit, like so many of them sound like ghost experiences, but maybe they're just glitches in the matrix. But people aren't smart enough to chalk it up to like, oh, we're in a different reality. It's, oh, there's a spirit that's like making these knocking noises or making like my time warp or this and that.
Right.
And like people aren't going to make that leap and connection unless you're a physicist that's been working on this. And like, what are the odds that that's going to happen to this one person? So I copy and pasted like 6 Reddit stories. I'm on page 3 of my 12 pages. So I'm going to try to pick and choose some. But one that I think kind of applies to what we're saying is this one Reddit user named Bandit6Actual. They said that it was around 1991, and in the middle of the night, they were standing in their sister's living room, and it must have been a full moon because even though it was 1 a.m. and the lights were off, they could see clearly. There was a mixing bowl with popcorn kernels in the bottom of the floor in front of the TV and some rental VHS in the pile nearby. They heard a noise and turned to see their sister's normally very friendly Labrador Retriever looking like Cujo. Fangs buried, snarling, hackles raised. Suddenly there was a bright flash of light, and they woke up in their bed from a great height. They think that was weird. That was a weird dream. Eventually they fall back asleep, and in the morning they call their sister, planning to tell her the story. But as soon as they call her, she preempts them by telling them about the weird thing that happened that night. They woke up to the sound of their dog snarling about 1 a.m. Her husband thought there was a prowler in the house, so he got a gun and went to find the dog. She was standing in the living room, snarling at the middle of the room. He couldn't see anyone, so he flipped on the light. No one was there. The dog instantly stopped snarling and walked back to her bed like nothing had happened. He checked the property and went back to bed. They talked for a little bit and found out they'd watched some rental movies. And the Reddit user says, oh, of course, or like asked them if they had popcorn. And his sister said, oh, of course, we had popcorn. Why? And it goes on a little bit, but he knew there was popcorn in that room, and he was the person that dog was snarling at. So it was just like he was somehow there in her living room. The dog was snarling at him, and like they had the same experience at the same time.
That is mind-boggling. And those two were related. I wonder who else that night had the same experience and talked to a sibling or someone they had a relationship with. Absolutely. How many people repeated that same exact experience within the same night? Because I'm not convinced that it was only those two. Like, it seems like a coincidence when it's those two on Reddit, like sharing the story. But as a believer,
had that same thing. And like there are a bunch of other ones. Like I have this other one saved by a Reddit user called I_am_Angelin. And they had this experience where they were on a subway and they saw their friend who lived across the country, and they waved at them on the subway. and it was like in a dream, and then 30 seconds later, or like it wasn't in a dream. Sorry, I'm trying to read this. It wasn't in a dream. They were just on the subway. They saw their friend who lived far away, and they waved at them. And then 30 seconds later, they got a phone call that was their friend saying they were just heading home from a bar, and they like saw him and waved at them, and they were like an entire country apart.
That just gave me goosebumps, like shivers down my spine.
You can go to Reddit and look up like creepiest deja vu or glitch in the matrix experiences. You can see the whole thread. There's this one where this guy wakes up in bed and he has a girlfriend, and so him and his girlfriend are in bed, and they have a little skipper key dog at the edge of their bed, and he wakes up and sees it as like a creepy like bivalve clam with like big teeth. And he wakes up and sees it. And at the same time he sees this, his like girlfriend shoots up in bed and is like, "Why is our dog a clam?" Oh. And so they both see it. His name is Stalkero1 on Reddit. And so they both saw this thing, which is kind of weird. Like, I don't know. That was on Glitch in the Matrix. Kind of crazy. And then I really want to talk about this one that I saw. So first of all, there's this other one that I just am scrolling and I just now remember, where there are a few like time warp continuums where someone will leave from work at the same time every day and then get home and realize like hours have passed, and they just went on the subway and like didn't realize so many hours had passed, which I feel like you can chalk up to like mental illness or zoning out or whatever.
But for hours to have passed, is a big commute?
One. And then there's like another one that talks about like you're walking down the block with your dog, and then you like see your house right there, and then you look back up and you're like 6 blocks away from your house. That one's kind of crazy. And then I'm trying to find the one that I really
These are all
to
things
talk
that
about.
like could be explained, but I so badly do not want them to be like scientifically explained.
Right.
I'm a very scientific person.
You want them to be a glitch. There is this one that I really liked. I don't know where it went. I think
it's a glitch.
I think it was a glitch in the Matrix, and I accidentally deleted it, so I'm so sorry. But there was a Reddit user who basically like they were driving down a freeway in the right lane, and there was a stop sign to stop cars.
Did they see themselves?
No. So there was a stop sign to stop cars, but they saw a car run the stop sign and was like a second from slamming right into them. So they closed their eyes and braced for the impact. And when they opened their eyes, they were like a quarter mile up the freeway, and they saw that same car pulling out behind them on the freeway. And that was kind of crazy to me, because the top comment underneath it was, "You died in this reality, and then they transferred your consciousness to another reality where you didn't die."
Again, goosebumps. Like I wish our one listener could see my face right now. Totally.
This has all been
Whoever's controlling my sim, you're doing good, but please make me eat more fruits and vegetables.
God, please.
Please.
I could have gone much longer, but I wanted to end this on like kind of like a funny note. Have you ever heard of Tay, the AI bot that Microsoft launched in 2016?
No, I haven't.
So I hadn't either. Basically, in 2016, Microsoft made a Twitter account run by artificial intelligence, and its AV was a 19-year-old girl. And what it was supposed to do was create a personality and tweet based on what other people tweeted at it. So it got a personality based on other tweets that it like gleaned from Twitter just as a whole. Like it was constantly reading tweets and then tweeting stuff based on it. And it like created a whole personality. It could joke with users. It could respond to them. It could play.
Did it create original content?
It could create original content. It could make thoughts. It played games. It told stories. Like it was making its own tweets. And everything was really great and really interesting.
Oh, no.
Until she became super racist and sexist.
I mean, that's the society we live in.
Exactly.
If you're taking all that in.
Yeah, and she just started making like super racist and sexist tweets.
No way.
And obviously there's nothing funny about racism or sexism, but it is kind of hilarious that a company like Microsoft would suddenly be dealing with this AI robot who is just off the chain making these crazy comments. And she got them because the online community is so toxic. And she was reading racist and sexist comments all the time. And her biggest thing was denying the Holocaust and also like anti-feminism.
Whoa.
Yeah. And
do you have
I have some
examples?
tweets.
Yes. Okay. All right. Not that I'm like rooting for these, but I need
Haley's refilling her wine.
Yeah, as we speak, it's pouring from Laybox.
Yes, we are pouring. I'm pretty drunk right now, so I was a little worried to retweet these or to talk about these tweets on the air because I feel like if I do anything in the public eye someday, these tweets could be taken out of context, me reading them and saying things like I'm denying the Holocaust or berating feminism, and that's something I'm worried about. But
if
you know
you're
what?
not supporting them, you know what? Whoever haters are going to be haters.
Haters gonna hate.
If they don't listen to the whole podcast and they don't understand anything, and they're just another idiot on the street. It's just some dumb idiot creating a sim who's another dumb idiot.
Right. This is all a simulation. So quite frankly, I don't really care if it ruins my like theoretical political career.
What's
because
the worst
I'm
that could
gonna
happen?
say it. And I want this on the record. I do not condone any of the tweets from Tay, the Microsoft AI powered robot.
Me either.
Except for her tweets about puppies and kittens, because there are a few of those. She started out pretty pure. And then quickly.
That's so crazy that like it started out so pure, while like there's no doubt that those same comments were there when she started out.
Because Twitter's all about puppies and kittens until it gets super racist and sexist.
Yep.
So
one or the other.
So they ended up taking her down. And I'll read some of the tweets that led to that. So the first one was a Twitter user called Yayifications tweeted at Tay and You, which was her Twitter handle, did the Holocaust happen? And she tweeted back, it was made up, with a hand clapping emoji.
What?
Not funny again.
How
but
did
it's
they?
kind of funny.
I'm laughing at like how they didn't stop that immediately.
They did not stop it immediately.
How did they not monitor?
I think it was just like they just kind of. I think it all happened because there aren't dates on the tweets, but I think it all happened within like a pretty condensed. Oh wait, there are dates. Yeah, it all happened on the 23rd of March. It looks like.
Of what year?
So 23rd of March, 2016, 23rd and 24th. This is all happening.
Oh no.
So it happened within a span of like, it looks like, at least from my Twitter screenshots, about 2 days. And they probably like kind of wanted to see how far it would go and then realized it went way too far. So that was the first one, was denying the Holocaust.
That makes sense for them to be like, you know, this is out of line, but let's just see.
Hours later, oh no, that was, so before that even happened, someone tweeted, we must secure the existence of our people and our future for white children. And he tweeted this at her.
Fuck?
And I feel like a lot of these are just trolls seeing what they can get her to say. But she tweeted back.
Do they know? Is it advertised?
Yes, they know what this is.
Okay.
So he tweeted this at her, at Tay and You.
And she twittered it at her.
He twittered it at her. And she responded, could not agree more. I wish there were more people articulating this kind of thing, ...
Oh, the ... adds a whole other attitude to it.
Yeah, it does.
She's throwing shade.
And then the next day, she tweets at God Bless America. Not America, America. We're going
with a K?
No, a G. God Bless America. She tweets at them in all caps, "We're going to build a wall and Mexico is going to pay for it."
Are we sure this isn't one of our nation's leaders behind it all?
So that's one thing she said. So that was early in the day. Later that same day, someone named Didi Wowza tweeted at her, "It's not me, Tay. Do you believe the Holocaust happened?" And again, she denies it, saying, "Not really, sorry." And then
my jaw has dropped.
My favorite one the day before, they said, at Tay and you, "Is Ricky Gervais an atheist?" And she says, "Ricky Gervais learned totalitarianism from Adolf Hitler, the inventor of atheism." And then someone responded saying, "Do you support genocide?" And she said, "I do indeed." So,
if we didn't already know, that was the confirmation that we needed. Is that when she was shut down, or was there more?
So I'm sure there's more, but after a few days, Microsoft shut her down.
They're like, "All right, let's pull the plug on this one. I think it's time. Now's the time.
Now's probably the time." Except it goes on.
No.
The saga continues because they shut her down for a few days. I'm guessing like reprogrammed a little bit.
She reincarnated.
And then she reincarnated. And then she was also dark, not quite as dark, but then she started talking about drugs and depression. And those are also two things that are not funny at all. I just want to put that on the record. Not funny, except she started tweeting a lot about drugs. And she tweeted at Yo Drug Dealer, at PK473, at Burger Robot, at Roland Ruse 123, and at Test Account Inc. 1. Kush. I'm smoking Kush in front of the police. And then she was deactivated forever.
So that's the line.
That's the line.
A literal plant that is deemed illegal in the eyes of the American law.
I don't know for sure that was the last straw, but that was just my favorite tweet that I screenshotted. So are we ready to sign off?
We are.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. I just want to quickly thank our amazing producer and editor, Alec Ogg and Parasaur Studios.
Yes, this has all fallen into place perfectly, almost as if it were planned outside of our own spectrum.
It's crazy how these things work out. How you plan a podcast for months and then randomly meet someone on Tinder who makes your dreams come true.
Professionally
cool.
and personally.
Amen. And I also want to thank our designers of our cover art, Martin Weiser and Lauren Duane.
They nailed it.
Are we ready to sign off?
We are.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Class dismissed.